a bunch of these lighters. I got like 50 of them in this backpack.
Lighters? Yeah, I'll take one.
I'll take some.
I lost mine.
I'm gonna
So I gave it to Jake in a time of need, and it was running low anyway.
All right.
In that faithful moment when you decide to plug in your laptop and try to open it up and hope to God that pornography doesn't pop up. I'm just kidding. I don't watch porn on my laptop. That's what phones are for.
All right. I'm setting us live right now, and I'm going to share it.
Okay.
So we're officially live right now. Run the bathroom.
That's look good.
Yeah, because I know my hair's all fucky.
Adjust the camera a little bit. And keep it
Oh yeah, no, I'm gonna do that when you guys all sit back. 'Cause
Yeah.
he's not close enough to the table anyway.
Perfect. Hair's good, I think.
Okay. I'm cleaning up the space.
Yeah, and I do need y'all to sit the fuck down.
I'm trying.
Shut up.
Okay. These are yours, I believe.
Yeah, these are mine.
So do you know how to kick things off now, or do you still need to get you started?
We did it last week, but it took us some time.
Okay.
That being
Wasn't
said,
Randy here?
He arrived 10 minutes late.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? No, that's right. He was here.
Yeah, if
he didn't
anything
think you guys were in here.
Oh.
Oh.
Oh, the other thing, of course, is he filled with our audio stuff, but he also made some.
It was while we were
questionable choices.
live,
Nice
so
book
it wasn't
selection, by
great.
the way.
Oh yeah, nice. Nice.
We're trying our best. We got the old and the new.
It's cord, not a twist. No shit.
Got that fancy whiskey.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
We'll call if we need you.
All right, darling, can you set it on the video thing, not on the Facebook
There,
thing?
that's cool.
Get it live.
Okay, we should at least try to get live within a couple
That's what
minutes.
he's
It's
doing.
live right now, actually.
All right, right on.
Oh,
It's getting...
Yeah, go ahead and shut the door.
We'll do.
there we go.
Got a couple friends of mine watching this, so hope I don't embarrass myself too bad.
Oh, yeah, I've been telling all my people, like, hey, I get to do something important.
I mean, I talk to my friends like, yeah, I'm running a podcast. You can watch it live on Facebook or listen to it live on Podcast Detroit. There's been some questions in my friends group about how the heck I got into this without telling them, but
So my sister was talking about
Because voodoo.
My sister was talking about Stranger Things the other night at dinner, and I was like, "Yeah." One of my buddies told me that I should watch it because they play D&D in it, and she goes, "Wait, that's the game that you play like every week?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Are there actually Demogorgons in the game?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they're in the game. I've never fought one,
Hey,
but
do any of y'all want to sit?
it's good.
I was gonna say, why don't
Some
we?
nice, sweet, lusty claw.
There's
Why
one
don't we all
Demogorgon.
get a little shot glass and we'll take a.
Oh,
thing
no,
during
no,
the
this is
show?
a nice sipping bourbon.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
it's
do
just
not
a
want
bourbon?
shots of that.
That's not a shot
That's nice.
thing.
Yeah,
You got to feel
burn
the
yourself.
aftertaste.
yeah, because
It's good.
it's
right.
beautiful.
Reminds me somewhat of whiskey for some reason.
Well, it's a bourbon whiskey.
Well, that would probably explain it, wouldn't it?
This is why I help people move.
You got that as a gift for helping somebody move?
Yeah,
Wow.
help one of my frat brothers.
I need you guys all to scoot in a little more.
This way a bit.
Oh,
All right.
there we go.
Remember to keep it about one hand width
Yeah.
away from yourself.
We're gonna get nice and close here, boys.
All right,
Oh, yeah.
actually,
We are all in
Up
frame now.
close and personal.
That's the way we like it.
I'm gonna angle this a little more, but yeah, Clint, if you could just sit maybe.
'Cause
or
we're the
sorry,
four best friends
Andrew, if
that
you could just
anybody
sit
can
a little
have.
closer,
Oh, yeah.
Paul. That'd be grand.
All right, guys.
2 minutes.
2 minutes till go time. If
1
it
minute.
gets- Yep. If it gets
1 minute till
shared
go
or
time.
not, we start at 4. It doesn't matter.
Yes. Well,
did we haven't got the approval yet?
I've submitted it for approval.
their loss.
Yeah, no, it still gets recorded. It still goes on.
I mean,
Yep. I'd like to reach 2,000 viewers, though. So if anybody's actually still listening to us at the moment, share with your friends. We'd love to have viewers.
yeah. If for the 3 people that are watching right now, every share, every like that we get is huge. the more views that we have, the better likelihood that we can get funding for the show and continue.
Hop on that boy and play our intro theme.
Yeah, let's
Hop
do
on
it.
out.
Here we go.
Let's do this.
Valhalla awaits.
Yeah, this is just that filthy, unscripted goof around time right before the show actually starts.
I like it.
Well, we're not fully scripted. We've got like a guideline, but we're not
And-
scripting things.
We are live.
Have any of y'all heard this yet?
You played it for me.
This is a bop.
It fucking slaps.
Jake's just getting into it.
D&D dance party, baby.
For some reason, this reminds me of Shadowrun. I can't say
This
why.
is so nice.
It's probably the cyberpunk overtones.
All right.
Yeah, it's nice when things work.
Yeah. Hey, this episode, unlike last episode, we're actually working, right?
Yeah. There
All
we
right.
go.
So, everybody, welcome to the 3DMs podcast here at Podcast Detroit. Going to take a quick moment to thank our sponsor, Watchtower Comics and Games out of Dexter and Milan. And anybody tuning in right now, please like our social media stuff. Find us on Facebook, find us on Twitter, 3DMs, and give us a share, give us a like, share it with your friends.
Is that with a 3, the numeral, or 3 spelled out?
Oh, the old-fashioned way.
The old-fashioned way, the right way.
Like you
my
would in
opinion.
polite conversation.
Yes.
We are classy people.
This week on the show, we are going to start our discussion series on every class B through W, because there isn't a class that starts with A. And from there, we are also going to have an interview with our good, dear friend of the show, Nacho. Nacho, please say hi. Tell everybody just a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Nacho. I spent 4 years in the Marine Corps,
You're not
infantry.
recording.
That's
Not
Mics
recording.
aren't on, encoders aren't on.
Oh.
That's why I hopped in, because I didn't hear you on the thing.
Huh. That's a problem, isn't it?
Which means
Yeah,
the
well-
audio is not going to the video either.
Yeah, let's go ahead and start over then.
Yeah. Oops.
Oh boy.
Is this your intro music?
Yes.
All right, so Ted, let me go ahead and get you guys kicked off.
Wow.
This
Now
time
I'm
I'm
embarrassed.
Well, we thought it worked.
We thought it worked, but
That was just a drill.
Hey,
yes. Well.
really good practice, guys.
Yeah.
This time, let's not talk over the theme music.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry, but it was just so good.
Thanks for the save, Dave.
Thank you. That would have been extremely embarrassing.
It's like when people say they know what they're doing,
It's very fair.
No, I mean, you know more about what you're doing than we do. So.
Audio's not working right now.
no, it is now.
Now it's working, of course.
Yeah, because I've got the encoders on.
Perfect.
I'll show you after. All right, here you go.
We are so sorry about that, guys. We're back.
We're actually live this time. All right, everybody, welcome to 3DM's podcast. This week we are going to be discussing classes, everything. We're going to start our class discussion series, everything from B to W.
There's
We're
no class
also-
that starts with A, I'm afraid. So
Tragically.
at least not in the core.
And we're also going to have a lovely discussion with our friend of the show, Nacho. But before we introduce him, real quick pause for the cause. Let's talk about our sponsor, Watchtower Comics and Games in Dexter and Milan, Michigan. Little mom and pop shop. Stop in, buy some dice, buy some books. They're kind enough to fund us so we can do this. And so if you could show them a little bit of love if you're ever in Southeast Michigan, we'd
Please
really
stop by.
appreciate
We'd
it.
appreciate it.
We are recording out of the Royal Oak Studio at Podcast Detroit. And so, with that, Nacho, thanks for coming out today, buddy.
Hey, anytime.
So, Nacho, for everybody who's tuning in, because I think if you've watched the show at least a little bit, you know us at this point. Give everybody the important deets.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I'm Nacho. When I was growing up and learning how to read, my dad introduced me to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, so they started me young.
Attaboy.
Then I actually grew up with Clint there.
Yeah,
going to high school.
I had transferred high schools, and Nacho was one of my wrestling teammates after transferring. So Nacho and I go way back. Actually, the second D&D game I played with, Nacho was a player, and I've been playing D&D with him since.
Yeah, and then after high school, I spent 4 years in the Marine Corps infantry. Now I'm trying to get an education.
Trying to get edumacated. as
Trying
some say.
trying to.
A noble cause.
Noble indeed. So,
And now I get to nerd out with all y'all.
yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, though, it was a rather interesting when Clint said before our Wednesday night game one day, hey, by the way, I'm going to bring my buddy from the military tonight. Oh, okay. Sweet. What's his name? Nacho. Okay. I don't know how I feel about this. But no, he's been a delight, and he's welcome to every single table I play at.
Well, yeah, I introduced my character by headbutting a phoenix.
Yeah, no, that's how you make a good impression, both on me and on everybody else in the game.
But, Jake, what's our first topic for discussion today?
We are going
right
to
to
begin our series on discussing and rating every single damn class in the game. So,
All of them.
starting from the top, you get this lovely, beautiful book that you go buy at a store, correct?
Hopefully. You're not stealing it, I hope.
You go to the
Stealing's a
store,
crime.
you buy the player's handbook. You start flipping through, you start looking at the classes. Races technically come first, but we're not going to get deep into that. We are going to talk, however, about the stuff that you play as. And so I'm going to take point here on starting with one of my favorite classes, because anybody who knows me I love to smash and I like to shout. So, with that, the master of smashing and shouting, the Barbarian. Barbarian, ladies and gentlemen. For those who are new to D&D or, getting a grasp really on D&D, because that's why we're doing this. Anybody who's seasoned and know their stuff knows that barbarians are good at two things: getting hit in the face and then laughing at you after getting hit in the face.
A long and ancient tradition is the barbarian.
A long-standing and sacred tradition of the barbarian.
It goes back to AD&D, where they uniquely could not use magic items and had to break it to gain experience points. So anytime you ran across a magic sword, the barbarian would break it in half.
So is that where the destructive barbarian trope comes from?
Yes.
It comes from Conan the Barbarian, who I'm sure many of our viewers
Yeah.
are familiar with. That's where the inspiration comes from. To begin with.
Shouting history aside,
But it helped.
the barbarian trope comes from the sack of Rome or rather the sacks of northern Greek cities when barbarians, i.e. bearded peoples who did not speak Greek, came and wrecked shit.
Yes, that's where the term barbarian comes from, certainly. I'm sure the people who are not
the
like
D&D
us who
tradition
like rating
is good old
come from
Conan and his thighs and loincloth.
Yes.
also his mighty thews. Or
His thighs.
Sinews.
So, guys, let's talk about barbarians. Let's talk about what they do mechanically. Let's talk about how fun they are. Barbarians. Right off the bat, they have the most unused dice in the game as their hit die. The Lonely D12, only used for barbarians, great axes, and occasional phallic measurement.
My
Also-
favorite die.
Also,
Occasional phallic.
dragon and undead hit points.
That too. So, barbarians, naturally a lot of HP, because their job is, again, to get hit in the face
Without wearing plate armor.
without wearing plate armor.
Armor's
Very
a
simple in
crutch.
terms of skills, very straightforward. You get simple proficiencies: light armor, medium armor. You are good with every single weapon that you take your muscles and hit somebody with.
Including chairs, improvised weapons and stuff.
Yes.
Chairs,
Unfortunately,
tables, and ladders.
I'm afraid that's not necessarily a thing, but in case you don't want to
You need
trouble,
Tavern
you're
Brawler
probably
for that, but
better
that's
off with the monk.
feats is way down the road. A very light smattering of skills they get, and their equipment section is the shortest in the game, which I actually adore, because so when you're doing starting equipment, you have to pick, A or B on these lists. Anybody who's done character creation would know this. You get either an axe or something else. You get
Or something else.
Yeah, you get more axes or another simple weapon. And then you get a backpack and javelins. You get 4 things to murder people with right off the bat.
Well, those are the basic implements of barbarianing.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, you use the javelins to hit things that stay out of your axe range wisely, and then you use the axe to hit things that aren't smart enough.
And then
to
you
stay out
use
of
your
axe
hand
range.
axe to throw an axe, because throwing axes look sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
I have a great and deep love for the barbarian, because I think anybody who plays the game and struggle. Like they're kind of overwhelmed by how many mechanics there are.
The Barbarian is an excellent starting point class. in
It
my
is a
opinion.
very, it's if you're trying to get your feet wet and you don't know what to do, because I've seen a bunch of new players come in, try to play something very complex, and they don't have a good time because they're just like, I don't know what to do. Barbarian's simple, and here's why. The Barbarian has one main thing that he does: rage.
He gets very angry.
His
all the time.
ability to fly into a rage powers his entire kit. It allows you to make advantage on strength saving checks. You do extra damage when you hit. You take less damage from slashing, bludgeoning, and piercing objects.
Non-magical, I believe, but
Non-magical,
That's
but-
going to be the vast majority of things you're hit with is non-magical.
Early in the game, yes. As you move on from there, you get a couple of cool little fluff flavor things. I love in 5th edition that they added the unarmored defense, so you can finally have the naked, screaming barbarian.
You know, you can just run around in your fur loincloth with your giant axe and your horned helmet, and you can be a barbarian.
If you're feeling frisky, you don't even need that.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, but we'll save that for after hours.
Yeah, a good friend of mine played a barbarian in a game once who flew into combat absolutely naked, and he just wore a bear's skin over his body while he was walking around, and then
Historically accurate.
flying into combat would just rip that off. You get a bunch of very useful stuff for any party to have. Danger sense. Danger sense allows you to know when bad things are about to happen to you. There's a trap. There's something. You know,
Back in ye old days, that was called Uncanny Dodge, and
Yeah.
it was incredibly useful, I have to tell you. You got it at 2nd level. It was fantastic in 3rd edition.
And you also get a couple other fun things like Reckless Attack, which is, I don't care about anything. I'm going to hit you really hard, and you suffer for the consequences of that later. Mechanically, it works. You'll get advantage at the person you're trying to hit, and then they get advantage on you.
A bit of a double-edged sword, obviously. It's not something you want to use unless you really don't care and you want this thing to die right now.
So, hopping into the paths really quick. There are only 2 flavors until Xanathar's comes out later this month. Excited, putting fingers together. And those are Path of the Totem Warrior, which we're going to cover a little bit, and Path of the Berserker. Path of the Berserker is the simplest one. It is, hey, I'm really good at getting angry. I'm going to continue to be even better at getting really angry. Mindless Rage, Frenzy, all these are abilities that you get.
There were abilities that made the Barbarian quite effective back in the days of 3rd edition and Pathfinder, because it made the Barbarian one of the few martial classes that was in fact useful at all, because nothing does the job as well as a Barbarian hitting you in the face with an axe.
Yeah. And also they get Mindless Rage, they can't be charmed, they can't be frightened, so it's just a big, angry, screaming thing. Jumping really quick to totems, and then we're going to have our open table discussion. Path of the Totem Warrior is really cool. You basically pick your spirit animal, your actual spirit animal.
You're somewhat limited at the moment, but I'm sure they'll expand that over time.
Well, there's been a couple of Unearthed Arcanas that have expanded on that, and there's also some stuff in the Sword
Xanathars.
Coast, Xanathars and Sword Coast Guide Adventuring. There's a few other barbarian totem warrior paths in there, but basically you can pick a bear, you can pick a wolf, or you can pick an eagle, and you get different buffs from all of them. Bear being the most
Tanky.
upsetting for a DM, because with the bear totem, barbarians actually just don't believe in damage. To them, it's something that hasn't been proven by science, and you haven't been able to prove that damage is actually occurring. And
you can't prove it.
exactly.
You can't explain that.
What
Yeah.
What do you mean I feel that sword to the face?
No, I don't.
Exactly.
Stop lying to me.
So, guys, everybody at the table, how's everybody feel about barbarians?
I had a game, the first game that I ran, the game that in prior episodes I've explained as more of a drinking group with a gaming problem. They drew from the deck of many things, and one of the cards that they drew, one of the players got an NPC. And I made the very, very bad mistake of giving them a wolf totem barbarian with a rogue in the party. Barbarian is super, super cool with the wolf totem, especially if you have a rogue in the party, because rogues get their sneak attack when they have advantage on attacks. It doesn't necessarily say if they're unseen. So if this thing is if the wolf totem barbarian is within 10 feet of whatever they're trying to attack, the rogue can
5 feet.
automatically.
Isn't it
Is
5
it
feet?
5? I
Yeah.
thought it was 10.
5 feet.
5
I
feet.
think it's 5 feet, and they've got no allies within 5 feet. But I could be wrong. Correct me, listeners.
You're mostly right. But semantics aside.
Semantics aside, it increases the chance that a rogue is able to do those sneak attack
Which is fantastic flavor because I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this, but one of the greatest inspirations for the Barbarian in Gary Gygax's Unearthed Arcana was Unearthed Arcana. It doesn't matter. Was Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, which is an adventure story in the vein of Conan the Barbarian, which in D&D terms I'd best fluff them as a barbarian and a rogue.
We did just get a comment from Kyra or Kira. Kira.
That'd be
Fado!
Fado. It says it's just 5 feet, no other restrictions. Also, earlier they also commented and said, "No worries, I share every single episode. Thank you very much."
You are our greatest fan.
You are one of our greatest fans, yes.
No, Fado is the greatest fan.
He is.
I will fight everybody outside the studio.
Wolf Totem is the team player. Bear is instead of climate change denying, you deny damage.
Yep.
You're a damage
It doesn't
truther.
exist.
And Eagle is a kind of hodgepodge, including the most useful ability, which is flight.
That's eventually, though.
Yeah, eventually you can fly while raging, and there's nothing angrier than a screaming man or woman coming after you with a great axe that you can't fly away from.
Nacho currently
that,
plays
wizards.
a very angry little halfling barbarian in my game that has, through shenanigans and sheer will, ended up with basically Molnir, the ability to
much.
fly, and he can't speak a lick of common.
But he speaks fluent.
He does a little bit. My character, once he's no longer kidnapped, it plans on giving my hand some lessons in common.
But until that point, he's my little halfling. He speaks orc. He doesn't speak common. Got to give that 8 intelligence something.
Here's a thought. Why are barbarians always sort of flavored as being like orcs or half-orcs? Is there some sort of long-term tradition behind that?
No, I
Because-
think it's just big, muscly dudes, and the idea of the barbarian is that they are a untrained warrior, much like the Hulk, and their whole job description is get pissed, get in their face, and like
Get
they're not
nasty.
doing academic trained fighting. They're swinging an axe really hard at you, and then getting hit in the face and going, "That didn't hurt."
That's why I love barbarians.
No, you didn't. You
Yes.
didn't hit me. I'm fine. But
It's, the Monty Python equivalent, it's just a flesh wound, is pretty relevant here. Like you could take a barbarian's leg off, and he's just like, "No, you didn't."
Tis but a scratch.
Yeah.
I'll bite your toes
come
off.
on, you pansy.
Yeah, as a final, one more story about a barbarian in one of my games. He basically charged into a maze incredibly recklessly that was filled with enemies everywhere. And 18 crossbow bolts later, he was only at half health. And we just joked that he was literally a walking pincushion. He finally sat down after running into the cleric. And he was just like, okay, help.
Sounds like me and him need to do some tag team barbarian
Yeah.
work.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But
Oh, by that barbarian, just for everybody who's in my game here at this table. That was Sigger.
Oh, no. Oh, no, baby.
oh, Jesus.
Anyway, barbarians are an excellent starting point because, not to disparage barbarian users, they don't have that much going on under the hood other than the rage and the abilities attached to the rage. They're good team players when they're wolf totem, and they're incredible tanks when bear totem. But there's not you don't have to memorize a whole bunch of spells. You don't have to memorize a whole bunch of rogue tricks.
And see, that's why I brought the Wolf Totem into that game that I was talking about, is because they were fairly new players. I kind of wanted to give them something to help them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great
But-
for getting your toes wet.
I also
Yeah.
want to bring up that Steve in the comment section points out that there is an orc trait where you can go down to 1 rather than 0, I imagine, HP once before a rest is a huge factor that helps orcs being good at being barbarians.
Ah, yes, the ability to ignore death. You
Yeah.
feel
Again,
no pain.
not scientifically proven.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
the barbarian, they have an ability that once they drop down to 0, you roll your, I believe it was a con save, that just increases by 5 every time you have to make it to stay standing.
It's the old die hard ability.
You have extra blood
Yes.
that you can just.
You're a bit
put in
overdrawn at
there.
the blood bank, but what does that matter?
Oh, you killed me 6 times? I'm still standing.
Yeah,
So,
We also need to move on to the next class.
of course we do.
yes, we do. But any final thoughts on barbarian?
I
Anything you
recommend
wanna
them to
see
anybody
done?
who wants to start playing D&D.
Yeah, I think
Barbarians
they're
are a lot of fun.
The point that I brought up outside before the episode started is all of the classes that we're going to be covering, I feel like every class in 5e is viable in its own way.
Oh, yeah.
But Barbarian is definitely the awesome, get your toes wet, don't have to worry about too much bookkeeping, and just hit things in the face really hard.
And I think the one thing that everybody's forgetting, it is the single best mono class party that you can have. A 5-player all barbarian party is a riot.
You're not
Terrifying.
taking them down.
It's hilarious. No, because it's always the same thing. They're drunk, they're angry, and they are a walking fleshy hurricane.
They sledgehammer their way through things.
And that is why we love them.
Yeah.
And so, with
Let's
that,
move on to the complete opposite of that class, the Bard.
I pass the book to you, sir.
The Bard is an ancient tradition indeed. It gets about as old as it did, and frankly, the Bard had a very troubled history in the early days. You couldn't be a Bard without multiclassing into Fighter, Rogue, and Wizard, and then resetting all your levels to be a Bard back in AD&D. And that was awful. Nobody likes doing that. It was such a pain.
Yeah.
In second edition, they were there, I guess, but they had the issues in the fact that they were sharing space with the Fighter Wizard and the Rogue Wizard. And third edition, they kind of came into their own. The Bard is the quintessential face, which is to say somebody who takes on the role of acting in the party's best interest. Imagine they're a lawyer, but you try to sleep with everybody.
That's actually the best analogy for a bard that I've ever heard.
That's how I play.
That
Bard.
is the stereotypical Bard. So actually, we're gonna take a hot second here. Everybody at the table, what is the most ridiculous shenanigan that a Bard has ever caused in a game?
The most ridiculous bard shenanigan ever that I've been a part of definitely goes to Nacho, without a doubt. Like, we sat down to play a game, and everybody has like these like ridiculous high fantasy names. He made a female bard named Tara,
because simplicity's key. You want
yeah.
people to remember your name.
and
You got to keep it short. Keep it simple, stupid.
we're literally staring death in the face in the form of a red dragon, and Nacho,
I had 20 charisma, and it's like, hey, I want to
he
seduce
does a
the dragon.
seduction check on a red dragon.
It
Well,
worked
to be
for
fair,
the
I believe I
donkey in
used
Shrek.
persuasion for it, but
That's a nice
you
roll.
got to call it a seduction check.
Yeah, I
because
mean, it was
I want the
persuasion,
dragon.
but it's a
right.
seduction.
I
check.
see you, the classic seducing of the red dragon.
Yes, let's.
And I raise you the time that Paul's sister literally told a woman who had been studying how to ascend to godhood for her entire life that she was actually doing it wrong, needed to leave the circle so she could then step in as the bard and ascend to godhood.
Glibness is a hell of a drug.
Glibness, no. One day we're going to talk about spells, and one day we're going to talk about glibness, and I'm just going to go back in the corner so that way the mic will be able to pick up my screams at how much I hate that spell. I just had to restrain every single swear word I know coming out of my body.
Well, I mean, fuck. Charm person?
Smooth.
Who needs that when you can just get plus 30 to your bluff checks? When the difficulty for a completely improbable lie is only 20.
Excuse me on that.
It's Bards have certainly got they've got the best social manipulation spells in the game. They've got a whole bunch of assisting abilities, but they're no mainline fighter.
I mean, would you go as far as to say that as far as role playing goes in the game, that bards are definitely up there as
Bards are
one of the strongest, if not the strongest, role playing class in the game?
Yes. Well,
any
that and
puzzle
the sorcerer.
So let's take it all back a little bit. Bards are an excellent support class in the game, and here's why. They are arguably the best skill monkey in the game in 5th edition. Skill monkey is a term that we use to refer to a character who has an abundance of proficient skills.
It's a general role-playing game term that used to describe any character who's not focused on magic or on fighting or on psionics or computer hacking or whatever, depending on your game, but has so many skills that if you don't have a specialist in the class, you say, okay, we'll let the skill monkey have a crack at it.
A very simple build in 5th edition is the Half-Elf College of Lore Bard, which gets 10 skills at level 3. By level 3, they have 10 skills between background, between the College of Lore stuff, and the fact that they can just pick any skill. Oh, and don't forget that Bard has Jack of all trades, which
Yes.
gets pretty early on.
Level 2, I believe.
Level 2. And that means anything they're not skilled in, they still get to add half of their proficiency bonus to.
That's what
anyways.
Terra was.
Yeah, no, the lord that these bastards assassinated that I talked about before, that Nacho plays in my game on Tuesday, and so does Jake. The lord of the island that they took over and assassinated, he was a College of Lore bard.
The thing is, of course, is that
Was.
bards are
Was
not easy to
until
start.
his casket was kicked over.
Damn right. Legion of Doom. Too sweet.
Wait, you can't
That
do
might have
that.
been out of
Cease and
frame.
desist,
Sorry.
man.
You're right.
That
you're
was
right.
out of
Sorry.
frame. Don't worry.
Okay, good.
Bards
you
are not
can't
an
see
easy
us.
class to start with. Bards have a lot of things that you need to keep track of, and they're very much a class that requires heavy role playing to get your maximum potential out of. They're the class that can, well, get the party out of legal trouble when the party inevitably does something stupid or the barbarian decides, I'm going to get drunk and wreck a town. So the bard busts out their old legal training and gets them out of the trouble.
Damage control.
Yes. The thing, of course, is the bard is more capable than any other class in getting into trouble because a bard is sort of 1/3 rogue, 1/3 fighter, and 1/3 wizard.
Can I bring to mind a popular culture fictional
course.
character?
Of course.
Paul Bettany as Geoffrey Chaucer in A Knight's Tale.
Yes, very much so.
Yep.
Bards have the famous bardic performance ability, which has changed somewhat in 5th edition, but it's still easily one of the best support abilities in the entire game. You've got clerics and druids kind of compete with them, but nobody can mess with the bard as the best support caster in the game. Even as only a half caster, they're still incredible.
Also, too, though, like where they do start to get out of hand is about it's level 10, I believe, if I remember correctly. Yes, magical secrets. They gain the ability to pick and choose a spell from a different class list. They can do this, I believe, twice.
I believe that's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
So at this point, you suddenly have a bard who can cast Disintegrate, and like he can get spells from 2 completely different systems and chain them together. There is, we'll try to share it on the Facebook. We'll try to tweet it out, or we'll do something. But there is a website that I saw where it's basically combos of spells that you normally wouldn't be able to do that just the bard can do.
Well, now the thing, of course, is it's a traditional problem with Dungeons & Dragons is that casters tend to get more powerful as more books get released because more and more spells tend to get released. This was a problem that 3rd edition especially suffered horrendously from, where eventually the fighter got nothing new from every splat book, and every time a new book came out, the wizard got 30 new spells, the cleric got 50 new spells they could cast. The bard, they've done their best reining that in this edition, but the bard gets to keep doing that because they get everybody's spells.
They get everybody's toys, and for once, where the bard was just useful as a very good role-playing kind of skill monkey, bard has actually taken a step up in the world.
Yeah.
He plays with the big boys now.
Bard used to be the quintessential tier 3 class to talk about tier lists, which I'm sure some people debate me contentiously about in the comments.
Well,
The Bard was the most balanced class, in my opinion, in 3rd edition and in 4th edition.
except for glibness.
Well, but you can't blame one spell for
Yes,
an
I can.
entire
Right.
class.
All right, guys. So,
But we should
Final
move
thoughts on Bard?
final thoughts on bard.
I know that the only final thought that I really have on Bard, I know that we try not to swear on the show very much, but bards are bullshit.
Yeah.
You think that about everybody, though.
Yeah, but
Not everyone.
the fact that every class
Just
can
bards
do
and
things
monks.
that can. Okay, look, the monk needs some time in the light. Okay,
Yeah.
it was
It does.
confined to the dark.
Hey,
dank
we're talking
pit.
about bards right now, guys.
It does,
Monks
but
come
the
later.
things that Bard can do, Bard. Okay, just to sum it up better than bards are bullshit. Bards can get themselves into trouble, and just as easily as they get themselves into trouble, can get themselves out of trouble.
Yeah, it's basically
They're pot stirrers
There's-
for sure. I love Bard. They add a certain flavor to the game that like. It's super easy to run a D&D game where it's all, oh, we're going to do this for justice and for good. But then you throw a bard into the mix and the bard's like, hey, what is the NPC wearing? And then it adds a certain element of the unknown that I absolutely love.
I think bards complement rogues excellently. And
100%,
they're
yeah.
two halves of the same coin in that they're the face character.
Really, if you're ever going to make a schlocky in-game buddy comedy, you need a bard. All right, we're going to take a quick break. But before we take our break, again, just got to thank our sponsor, Watchtower Comics and Games.
We don't have to, but we want to.
No, we have to.
No,
we have to.
we
It's
have to,
it's on
but
the
yes, we
paperwork.
want to.
I want to
Watchtower
as
Comics
well,
and
but-
Games, Dexter, Michigan, and Byland, Michigan. Stop in, buy some dice. Again, they got comics, they got candy, they got toys. Stop in, spend some money, help them out. I know the people who own it and run it. A bunch of good people, a lot of fun. Have a lot of good time with everybody there. So stop in, show some support, show some love for them. Also, if you could like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter, share our stuff out,
We would really appreciate
we
it.
would really appreciate
We're
that.
still getting our feet under
All right,
us,
we will
so.
be back in about 5 minutes. Thank you
See
very
you
much.
then. Thank you for waiting. We will be back in just a minute. Seriously, though, thank you for staying with us. We appreciate it. On that note, I suppose since we've got a moment of pause here,
Relative peace and quiet.
what do you think about bards as sort of more grim character types? What about evil bards?
That was exactly what I tried. Not necessarily evil, but that's what I tried to do with that lord. He was, for anybody that's listening that's a fan of pro wrestling, I basically tried to channel Paul Heyman through him, being the very super charismatic type. Very good talker, and he definitely had grim intentions. I think Bard is a super, super good class
Yeah,
for that.
depending on how evil you want to go, I'd argue that Charles Manson could be an example of an evil bard because he used his charismatic personality to get other people to do his dirty work.
That's actually a really, really good parallel.
Yeah, it's a good one. Personally, in my opinion, the bard is the manipulator and the orator, the
Yeah.
demagogue, if you will.
The instigator.
Yes. He may not do his dirty deeds dirt cheap, but he can make other people do them for him with his silver tongue or his golden tongue, depending on the level of persuasion this bard
And
can
he'll
pull off.
still be making his money.
He will.
Helen,
And people
is
love
the
him,
is
even
the
so.
live stream working for you? Because it's not for me.
Yeah, it is.
Okay,
It's always
cool.
on
I
the
just
side.
wanted to make sure that the live
You might
stream
need
wasn't
to-
down. Wanted to make sure
No,
it was
no.
just my.
So we're back. Thank you for waiting.
I
We
do
had
need
our
the player's
brief moment of
handbook.
discussion. By all means. Next, we're going to talk about, going down in alphabetical order, our favorite holy man other than the paladin.
and my personal favorite class. I know I'm pretty far away from the microphone, so I don't know if that was actually heard.
We can hear you. Just
We can hear you somewhat down. I'd
Okay.
recommend staying close to the microphone, of course, as a professional opinion.
Clerics in my personal opinion, the reason why I liked cleric and why I picked cleric in the first place was they're kind of the best of both worlds. They're in that same gray area that I would give to. They're not quite as melee heavy as paladins, but they're kind of in that same like
spectrum. If
yes,
you will.
they are very respectable melee fighters as well as fantastic casters.
They're nearly halfway in between maybe a wizard and a fighter, right?
Well, the thing, of course, is that a wizard is more of a
Yeah.
a selfish class, and the
Right,
cleric
that's
is a selfless.
That's
Cleric-
true, but I meant to say that they're as well, as comfortable in combat as they are just standing back and buffing.
I know
Not as comfortable as
all
they
right.
were.
I know that it's a
more.
super small detail, but the thing that I really like about the cleric spell list is logically it makes sense that all of those spells would be granted to you by a god.
Yeah, it's they have to at least justify it.
All right,
themselves.
so starting from the top.
Just running down basic class features. They have the hit die of 1d8. Their starting equipment, unlike the barbarian, you get a decent amount. You start with either a mace or a warhammer if proficient, scale mail, leather armor, or chainmail if proficient, a light crossbow with 20 bolts or any simple weapon, a priest pack or an explorer's pack, and a shield and a holy symbol.
Yeah, apologies. We did not go over the equipment for the bard. We kind of ran through.
the
Yeah.
bard gets whatever equipment it wants by bribing people into giving it.
Yeah, no, that's actually a very fair assessment.
Their bread and butter, as far as like the skills that you get early, is they do not like undead. They can destroy undead as it goes up through the levels 5 through 17 for CR. That you can just destroy them. That's it.
You can make them run from you. You can destroy them, and I feel like I don't have many good things to say about 3rd edition and Pathfinder. But I do like that evil clerics in those editions could choose to instead demand the undead obey them instead of turning them.
Yeah.
Well, hey, anybody can turn undead.
So-
You can only do it once, though.
Yeah.
They get when you pick. There's divine domains, so there's 4 of them.
Which, by the way, just jumping into that too, this is a very difficult class to play effectively.
Yes.
It's one of the spell heavy classes. You need to have a pretty good understanding of a whole bunch of spells. Have a pretty good understanding of how your magic system works for clerics, which Clint will expand on here in a second. And on top of that, every single domain gets their own little special powers, their own special spells. So you have to add those into the mix. Clerics are a chore to play, both as a character and as a player and as a DM running a cleric as an NPC.
Now, to be fair, they're, again, like bards, one of the
They're
more
more than
role-playing
what I
heavy
thought. I'm
classes
sorry.
because you have to follow the tenets of your god, roughly speaking.
Yes.
Though
They have that going.
Well,
for them.
the tenets as far as cleric goes aren't strict like a paladin where your powers can be stripped. I mean, at least depending on how you play. Like in the game that I'm playing with Jake right now, if my character's kind of caught at a crossroads, and if his god becomes unhappy with him, there's already another god that wants to use him as a channel.
I believe Nacho had something to say.
Yeah, I do want to backtrack a little bit to where Jake was saying why a cleric is hard. I do think you forgot when you have to learn all your different spells and abilities and how to use them. You also need to know when to use them
Yeah.
because your timing is critical.
It's
as a
all
cleric.
about timing.
They've
For
changed
a
how
for a
concentration
new
works.
player, cleric can be very difficult. However, as a sidebar to that though, life domain clerics, the healer, the doctor, if you will, is actually a very easy class for somebody who wants to get into casting because most of their spells are very simple. Most healing spells have very simple descriptions. And their powers are just like, hey, no, I'm really good at this healing thing. But as far as some of the more advanced clerics go,
So you have, as far as the different divine domains go, you have knowledge, you have life, light.
knowledge is so. Let's go case by case.
You want
here
to
real
go
quickly.
case by case?
All right.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've got time.
With knowledge, I mean, all of these domains basically they meta speaking, they decide what god you follow, but they depend on what god you're following.
And for-
You're not going to follow a god of war and be a knowledge domain cleric.
For to some degree, clerics have always had tons of domains, especially in 3rd edition. And they had, I believe, the most feats of any class in the game in 4th edition. Where they had something like 17 feats, one for each god.
See, like just for example, like in the knowledge domain, right here at first level, blessings of knowledge, you learn 2 extra languages And you become proficient in your choice of 2 of the following skills, being Arcana, History, Nature, and Religion.
Knowledge is a very good support cleric. If
Yes.
you look at their gifted spells, everything is really built on adding to the party's senses, adding to the party's ability to have knowledge about things they're either running into or things that are going on in the dungeon or in the house or wherever they're at.
So
Although
would that
I have to,
be-
at some degree, not to interrupt, say that if you're a cleric and you don't have religion, you better have to have a really good.
There is
reason
a
for that.
very long debate, though, because religion is an intelligence-based skill, and clerics are classically based on wisdom.
That's what I was going to ask. Was this int or wisdom based?
Yeah, see, that's where I think actually my cleric that I've been playing for the better part of a year and a half with Jake, I don't think I'm proficient in religion.
Yeah, just a bunch of clerics who it's like, yeah, I'm getting these powers. I don't know a damn thing about God, but
Well, moving
I got
further
these
through the
jobs.
divine
Go and
domains,
do
you've
my
got
will.
you've got life, which are just as Jake said, your doctor clerics.
They're the healing and they're the good people, I suppose.
They give
Look
you
for the
band-aids.
helpers.
Then you have
Slap magic.
the light domain, where at first level you get a bonus cantrip.
and
just
more
looking over
importantly,
this.
this is where we get into light. The light domain, despite having a name that is just light, is I think it's a pretty poor name for it because this is actually the Burninate the Countryside cleric.
The light 'em up domain. more
Yeah,
like-
it's,
This
exactly.
should have been the Trogdor domain.
Allow me to share my favorite theory about 3rd edition.
Okay.
Pelor, the god of the sun,
Yeah.
is actually lawful evil.
Oh.
He is Pelor, the burning hate. And that because in every art you see Jozan, the cleric in 3rd edition, he's doing something really cruel. And Pelor has always had these burn spells rather than these healing spells and these light spells. And there's not that much support behind him, because it's kind of a stupid.
Yeah, I mean,
theory,
just
think,
going
considering.
I
through
was going
the,
to say,
the
don't you talk
spells.
about my sun god like that.
The spells that you gain by being a light domain cleric, like you get 2 per every 2 levels from 1st to 9th. You get things like Burning Hands. At 5th level, you get Fireball.
Yeah.
7th, you get Wall of Fire. 9th, you get Flame Strike. I mean, these are
Okay, to be fair, Flame Strike is a very traditionally cleric spell.
Flame Strike is nasty.
It is horrifying. In 3rd edition, also, it had a unique kind of damage called divine damage, which nothing could negate.
Yeah.
You could not resist the flame.
Flaming
strike damage.
Sphere, Scorching Ray, bunch of. This is a cleric that you play if you just want to do a bunch of damage and fire. Fire everywhere. Oh my god, there's fire.
Nature domain.
Oh
is
Lord, get
cleric-
the water.
Druids that want to get punched in the face. Is the way that I would put it. You get a lot of like nature-based spells just from the domain.
Charm animals, it's
Dominate Beast at 7th level is really cool.
yeah, no, nature has always been a really weird one for me just because I feel like everything that nature clerics do, a druid can do better because druids, other than paladins, are the only ones who have so really quick talking about how magic works in D&D. There is arcane magic and there is divine magic. Clerics fall into divine magic, paladins also fall there, and druids technically a lot of their spells are considered divine.
Their spellcasting source is considered divine because the thing about divine is you know all the spells at your level. You just choose which ones you cast because they're granted by some power beyond you.
But nature makes a great choice if you just want to be friends with a bunch of small forest animals and not necessarily turn into one, and you still want to be able to rock some of that medium armor.
And you can, be a Disney princess.
Yeah.
Tempest is super cool in my opinion. You get like it says right off the bat that like Zeus and Thor are common gods that a Tempest
Fun fact:
cleric
Thor,
would wear
not a war
or would
god.
not wear would worship. A lot of the spells that they get are elemental based, I guess you could say. Things like Thunder Wave, Call Lightning, Ice Storm, Destructive Wave.
They
Insect
also
Plague.
they're one of the 2 clerics. So a bit of talking on Pathfinder. In 3.5 and Pathfinder, clerics all could wear heavy armor. That's part of what made clerics so terrifying from the get was the fact that they could wear the best armors in the game and still cast an amazing selection of spells.
They had no spell failure.
So one of the ways they kind of just reined them in a little bit was they took away their heavy armor proficiency except for 2 domains, and that is Tempest and War. Tempest is really cool because you get martial, you get a martial archetype. Yeah. You get a martial weapon proficiency. You get heavy armor proficiency. And if you look at the spell list, this is basically a dude who's wearing a bunch of heavy, ridiculous armor, riding around on a boat, just hitting things with lightning.
Oh, Thor, god of thunder, smite my enemies.
Yeah,
Yeah,
controlling.
it's pretty nuts.
Well, like spells like control water, call lightning, gust of wind, thunder wave. Like
Thunderwave is a surprisingly good spell. I recommend
it's
it to anybody.
fun
who
for
plays this.
players, but as a DM who loves to use character class NPCs as villains, Tempest is just it's so much fun. You can do so much cool stuff to your players, and by cool stuff I mean like really make them upset and hate you. But
Well, I don't hate you yet.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, but he hasn't stolen all your stuff yet a couple times.
Not yet. There's still time.
Paul, like I swear, if you remind me one more time of something upsetting you've done to me, we're fighting in the parking lot after this show.
So something I totally skipped over in playing a cleric. I feel really bad about doing so. They get each domain gets things called channel divinity abilities, and
I like it. It's a change from the old. Oh, you can use your levels of turn undead to do this. It's changed into an actual ability called channel
Yes.
divinity.
So between 1st and 6th level, you can only use it once per long rest. 6 to 12, you get 2, and then 12 to 20, you get 3 per long rest. And like as you level up within your domain, you can do even cooler things. So moving on to the trickery domain.
Yes. It's a kind of confusing one because it feels like all the cleric domains feel like they're sort of impinging a bit on other people's abilities. Like the cleric knowledge domain is sort of like, hey, wizards, why don't you just give me some of your skills and your spells? And
The trickery domain, like they are trolls, man. Like
It's-
look, you get
they serve
just
Anansi
trickery
and
domain
Loki
spells.
and
Yeah, trickery domain spells that you get charm person and disguise self at 1st level. Moving on, you pass without trace, dispel magic, dimension door, and polymorph, dominate person. I mean, these are all spells that, like when we were talking about,
they have no
Yeah, it's the demi
wholesome
bard.
uses.
Yes, it's the demibard. That's exactly what I was going to get at.
Well, too, though, I love the build because, again, you got to be good. You got to have a high wisdom, right? But if you're going to pull off a lot of the schlock that you would like to try to do as a trickery domain, you need to have a remarkably high charisma.
Yes.
So that's actually like just for me as a person who really likes seeing some of the numbers on the sheets and like seeing how people have put stuff there, like a high wisdom, high charisma character, kind of dump stats, maybe higher up in the physical stuff, but just a divine magic troll, so to speak, a divinely fueled bard.
Yeah, 100%.
Well,
It's a really cool class.
And
it's,
then-
really cool
it's
stuff.
fun, certainly.
Oh, yeah.
Is travel still in? Is travel still a domain, or did they remove that? Because that was always a fun one.
It has been removed, I believe.
Yes, no, there is no, unless it's on Unearthed
It
Arcana.
might be, honestly, it could be in Skag.
I'm sure it's coming back.
Moving on, last but certainly not least, and the one that I play, War Cleric.
In case you missed the old days of Cleric or Druidzilla, oh no, Codzilla is wrecking the town. He's knocking everything down. He's better at the fight or at his job. You've got War Cleric.
These guys gain at 1st level proficiency in martial weapons and heavy armor,
Much like Tempest.
much like Tempest. This is the other class.
This
there.
is the throwback.
some of the spells that they just get that they can use. It still costs spell slots, obviously, but I mean, spiritual weapon, freedom of movement, flame strike, and hold monster both at 9th level.
Hold monster and hold person are terrifyingly dangerous spells, and I recommend any game masters out there be very careful with giving them things because nothing sucks more than being paralyzed and being unable to do anything.
But War Domain is really cool when it's used. So when used properly, War Domain is basically the buff monster for combat. He's able to wade out into combat. He's able to help his buddies by, giving them Shield of Faith, Stone Skin, Freedom of Movement, Spirit Guardian, things like that. Just things to help him kind of shape the battlefield. It's a really cool thing to see because it's one of those, like, it's such a well-built domain in that it works very effectively in that he just marches out and he controls the battlefield through spells.
I mean, even just like take into consideration the channel divinity that you get at 2nd level, Guided Strike. You can use your channel divinity to add +10 to your to hit die, but the catch is you have to say this before the DM says it hits or misses, but you can say it after you've already made the roll. So if you hit something and you know what its armor class is roughly, and you know that you, by adding 10, could kill this thing, this is a perfect skill to have.
Nacho, you look like you're about to say something.
Oh,
Could you
yeah.
go on?
I do want to add one more thing on that. So when you have your hold person, dominate person, all that stuff, you have your spiritual weapon, which, if I remember correctly, you create a Jesus hammer,
Yeah.
as I like to call it. Then I believe it was a bonus action to control it and make it swing.
Yeah.
So you
It's a
take your-
bonus action to get another attack.
Yeah, so you take your normal attacks, you
take that
use
anyway.
your bonus action, your spirit weapon swings, they're held.
So yeah, while it still costs the full action, while it still costs the full action to cast that spell, you can, because clerics do end up getting the extra attack.
Every
well-
class gets the extra attack at some level. Do wizards? I can't remember. Do
No, I
wizards
don't
get
think
it?
so.
I don't
No.
know.
But-
Wizards do not.
They don't need it by that level.
But
They
your
get a whole
spirit
bunch of
weapon
spells.
stays out there, so
Yeah, your spirit weapon stays out there, and you can use that as a bonus action on top of extra
In
attack.
case you wanted to roleplay Diablo 2's Paladin and have Holy Hammer spinning around you, of course.
Yeah. So overall, because we need to wrap up cleric here.
Yeah, of course.
We need to get on to our next segment.
If you have been playing D&D for a while and you want what I would consider to be the best of both worlds, you want to be able to get hit, you want to heal people, you want to buff people, you want to be the all-around playmaker or X factor on a battlefield, cleric, I would say, is probably one of the bigger ones.
Cleric is a very powerful class with a long tradition of being extremely powerful. Back to 2003 when 3rd edition was released.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, the cleric's not good enough. How about we just make them fight like a fighter and get all the other stuff too? That's not going to go horribly wrong. I have some issues with Pathfinder clerics, by the way, but we'll save that for another day. Clerics are fun. Clerics are good. Clerics are an experienced player's choice, basically. They have a ton of options, and almost all the options are at least usable. But clerics require heavy role-playing investment, too.
Yes.
You wouldn't want to have a new player say, okay, here's 16 tenets of your god that you have to obey. Like, imagine, for some blasphemous reason, that you're playing a cleric of Yahweh, the Judeo-Christian god. You have 10 commandments you must follow. And if you break them, you lose your powers.
Yep.
That requires a lot more dedication than a fighter thinking about how to position themselves as battle master, or a ranger or wizard trying to figure out their best range to fight people. The cleric has to consider in their role-playing opportunities how their god works and how they should work.
Overall, it's a very complicated class. It's something, if you're a very new player,
It's a good class. I'd recommend trying it.
try it, but
don't
it
say
can
you
be
have to do it.
frustrating. Yeah, it can be frustrating. It can be a very tough to use class, but it's a lot of fun. It's got a lot of great built-in story potential because there's always that, serving the god or, doing the right thing. There's a bunch of dichotomies you can do. As long as a DM, you're not being a jerk and, trying to, the old classic, I'm going to make you lose your powers by going against your tenants gag,
That's
then-
mostly the paladin, but they now have to do it to the cleric because the game designers said, jerk GMs were making people either eat this baby or have a whole bunch of other babies die. You lose your powers.
Yeah.
Who likes that? That's not fun.
Yeah.
Boys, I'm actually going to go grab some water real quick. I'm sorry.
Go for it, it's fine.
So,
But we should move on to our next segment here because we've now blathered a bit, I suppose, about the cleric for a while. It's a class that has a lot of history. It goes all the way back to AD&D. But there's only so much you can talk about without getting into the spells.
yeah,
Yep.
but the
So-
blathering, it's very well deserved.
the blathering about cleric is a lengthy topic. So next week we're going to start covering druids and let's see. Let's actually go through. So druids, fighters, and I believe that would bring us to monk and ranger. Might be able to get through all of those next week. So definitely look forward to druid, fighter, and monk at least for next week. Ranger if we have time. Also, really,
paladin there.
Oh, yeah.
no, we're gonna.
Did we miss Paladin? Yeah, I think this would be Druid,
No,
Druid Fighter.
yeah, no, I
Monk,
suck at the
Paladin.
alphabet. You're right. Paladin comes first.
It's
I've been
hard to remember,
trying.
but-
Well, don't worry. Well, Paladin's going to take time too because that's a very lengthy discussion.
Yes.
Because Paladin's got complicated in 5e, but beyond that point, quick ad break here. So again, one more time, we'd like to thank our. We'll try
We'd
that
like
one
to
more
thank
time.
our sponsors.
We'd like to thank our sponsor, Watchtower Comics and Games, in Dexter and Milan, Michigan. Again, they pay the bills so we can do this. really nice people. Everybody stop in, buy some dice if you're ever in Southeast Michigan. Show them some love. Go like them on Facebook. Send them a message. Tell them you shouldn't be funding a bunch of jerks on the weekend doing this. But
Just don't let them.
let
know
them
that, okay?
know that they're appreciated.
Yeah,
Show them some love.
but
Also, if you're enjoying our content and us schlockily getting through all of the classes, please make sure to like us on Facebook, share our videos. We're going to have YouTube and a website here up in the next 2 weeks, and
look forward to that.
look forward to it. Follow us on social media where you can. Like it, share it, send it out to people. So, with that, we are going to get into the thing I've actually been looking forward to the most about today's episode, and that is our good friend Nacho here. Nacho, as previously stated, you are a man who served 4 years in the United States Marine Corps. Devil dogs! So, with that in mind, I'm sure a lot of people who play this game find out when they start getting into the hobby that there's actually a very heavy military presence in the hobby.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, it's. I mean, no offense, but you're trapped away from regular party facilities, and you've got other people who you're interested in playing games with. So
Yeah. On my first deployment, I ended up spending 9 months aboard a Navy ship,
What was the name of the ship, by the way?
the USS Baton, good
Okay.
old LHD-5, the rusty nickel for you shipmate sailors.
So,
And
I can imagine that was somewhat of a long trip. I have to tell you.
it was a nice long cruise.
Well,
We played euchre, spades, Magic the Gathering, and Dungeons and Dragons all the time.
the first game that I played with Nacho, actually, our dungeon master was a Navy vet, and he played tabletop games extensively in the service.
a friend of the show, Steven. Nacho, you've met
Yeah.
Steven. He
Yeah, I've met
came to
Steve.
one of our games. Yeah. He's a former Air Force member. I've
Chair force, if you will.
Oh, sorry. Don't be rude.
Oh,
no,
man.
no. Veterans Day's coming up. We got to be nice to all our
Yeah,
brothers and
I'm
sisters.
sorry. Forgive me, guys.
So,
That was hard for me to say, but we had to. No,
so
I love you guys.
if you don't mind me asking a question, I can't imagine that it'd be easy getting materials to play on board a ship.
See, this is how we did it. Like, a couple of us, we've been hanging out talking about random stuff we do. And eventually Dungeons and Dragons came up. It's like, we could do this. So after going down to the library, signing up to get on one of the computers, waiting 12 to 15 hours to finally get our 30-minute block to use the computer, get on the internet. Like, we had everything planned out. Get on Amazon, buy books, but we bought like 3 or 4 sets of the pound of dice.
You're allowed to bring dice on a Navy ship?
You're able to. We didn't bring them, so we had to buy them and have them mailed to us. So then we had to wait another, I think, about a month to get all our dice and books. Then we ended up having 2 or 3 games going on in my berthing. That's the living quarters for those of you that don't know.
okay.
And then, so we had 2 or 3 Marine games. We ended up getting 2 or 3 Navy games. We had a couple where it was mixed.
Now, my big question when it comes to like playing games in the service, and you and I talked about it a little bit, since you guys are, as Paul mentioned, you guys are on a boat. I mean, you guys have your responsibilities to do, but outside of the military responsibilities you have to do on the boat, there's some downtime.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of downtime.
A lot of downtime. So,
Hurry up
like,
and wait.
are your sessions longer than the standard 3 to 4 hour session that most people would run?
See, we've had some days where it's, hey, we have stuff to do in the morning, so we do a 2 or 3 hour sessions. There are other days where it's, we have nothing going on. It's 6, 7 o'clock at night. Yeah, let's start playing. Next thing you know, it's 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and we should probably get some sleep.
That is a very relatable feeling. I have to
So,
tell you.
how many? Here's the. Okay, so on your ship, about how many crew members? How many?
That's a lot.
How long was the boat? How big? What class?
It was an LHD, so I believe that's one size smaller than an aircraft carrier. We had the helipads, we had amphibious vehicles.
Yeah, my grandpa served
some
on something
reason-
similarly sized.
There were a lot of people.
A lot of people. Okay,
For
well,
some reason, I was imagining a destroyer, but the Navy doesn't have any destroyers.
I mean,
anymore, do they?
I
I'm
think they
I'm
still
more
have destroyers.
curious. Like, how many people eventually were like, "What are you guys doing?" oh, that looks like fun.
So if you're talking about people that were playing, I think we got 30 people throughout all the games to actually play. We had other people that were interested, but they didn't want to play because, like, we had large groups of like 5 to 6 players.
Yeah. How many DMs were on the boat?
We had 3 with experience.
3 with experience and some who are just like,
There's
I'm
some
going to do
people-
it.
You need to learn
Yeah.
to wing things.
Yeah,
as a
in
game
some of
master.
one of the games I was playing in, we'd end up taking turns and, okay, you're gonna run a game, and the guy with experience, he'd help coach them through it. So we started with 3 DMs.
Hey.
Hey.
I see what I did there.
Smooth.
But then when we got off, I think we had 7 or 8 guys that felt comfortable in the DM chair.
Yeah.
So we had one that he refused to be called Dungeon Master. He was a Dungeon Manager.
Yes.
So he's like, no, I'm not in charge of you guys. I'm here to make sure you're able to play.
I like that.
Did he have a dungeon assistant?
He actually did.
So I have a question. So you're on a ship. The ocean wobbles about. Several people have house rules for if your dice lands on, the edge of a table or falls on the ground. Did you have a rule for leaners, or if the ship pitched and your dice fell off?
If it was leaning,
Oh yeah, leaners.
so that it's between it, then yeah, you'd re-roll it. If it fell off, it fell off.
Well, you mentioned
I meant
something on
specifically
the.
if the boat made it fall off.
Yeah, because there were
What are
times
you
where we're
gonna do
going
about
through
it?
choppy waters. I was playing a Goliath Barbarian, and I used all of my. This was a 4E
Yeah.
that we were playing. I used all of my dice except for my D4. So eventually, it's like, you know what? I'm not going to pull my great axe on this guy. I'm just going to punch him in the face because I'm a barbarian. I can do that. So after waiting for maybe a month or so to use my D4, I finally punch a dude in the face. I roll it. We hit a really big wave. Never saw that D4 again.
RIP.
You mentioned that on the way here. Didn't you say that you guys were sailing through a hurricane?
Yeah. So we got extended a month, and then coming back, it's like, well, we could add a couple more days or a week or two, or we could just go right through the hurricane. We went through the hurricane. I don't remember which one it was.
It's a big ship. It doesn't care
Yeah.
that much about the hurricane.
Yeah,
so.
it's like there were times where you had 1 foot on the floor, 1 foot on the wall, but
Now, was this the same? Because I remember you were talking to me.
that was when I lost my D4.
Now, were you?
Rest in peace, T4.
What I was.
Someday,
what I'm
hopefully
going to
someone will
ask
not
is,
surprise it.
was that the same deployment that I remember you said that you were a part of the crew that broke the Navy record of being at sea without returning to port?
Yes. In 2014, USS Baton.
Was that the campaign that you lost the or was that the deployment that you lost the D4 on?
Yeah, that was the only one I was on a ship. The other time I spent 6 months in Spain drinking sangria, grilling bratwurst, playing random Dungeons and Dragons. We had one dude that actually played Indiana Jones. The DM didn't catch on till 9 or 10 sessions in.
Oh my god!
What was his name then? Like Dakota James?
No, he picked some random name, but he was a wizard. So he was a professor at a university. He enjoyed going on archaeological digs, and he looked for relics and artifacts. And then we're playing. This is the same DM that wanted to be a dungeon manager because Jonesy was awesome. He went with me to a different unit after that first deployment. He's sitting there. He's explaining what's going on, and then he stops. He sets his book down. He looks up. You're Indiana Jones.
By the way,
The response should have been, no, I'm Arkansas Jefferson.
No, I'm Arkansas Jefferson.
it's. I don't mean to interrupt, but
Oh, no, go
it's
for
something
it.
you should consider is that a lot of people, when they start playing Dungeons & Dragons, they decide, I'm going to emulate this character from pop culture. And there's nothing wrong with that. I started off by playing random characters from other franchises, and that's fun. It's difficult to get into your own role-playing skin.
Yeah, you have to look for inspiration for your characters. And
Not
we made it
Joe
a
and-
game to base characters off of other things and see how long it took the DM to figure it out.
Nacho and Jake in a one shot that I just ran last Tuesday. in my because I use my one shots similar to the way that Jake uses one shots to kind of build the lore of your world, help to introduce different areas of your world in your main campaign. They played a couple of brothers that had a long lost father, and the father, the basis of him was Captain Kirk. So Captain Kirk is now a thing in my campaign setting.
Yeah, Jake was a half elf. I was a half orc. Captain Kirk, he
really
loves
gets
green
around.
women.
Yeah.
So it's only natural.
He loves green women.
You
That's
listen,
and
you
now
can't
you have to cast
fight
the supernatural and Kirk.
Yeah, you can't help the fact that Mr. James T. Kirk, Mr. James Tiberius Kirk, is just a sexual magnet.
It's the truss.
If you pardon my French, a goddamn sexual tyrannosaurus.
Yes. So
That's putting it
back
mild.
oh god. But back to D&D in the military. So I guess here's like slightly more serious questions. Hard hitting journalism stuff here. No, so
Brace yourself.
well, here's a few questions. For one, what would happen? I mean, I presume you just drop everything and you have to go do your work.
Yeah.
But were there ever drills that ever messed up a game or like an actual serious event where everybody needed to stop what they're doing,
Well,
throw something on the table? And
most of the time we do our games at night
Okay.
to avoid having to actually do stuff.
Clever.
But there was one time where someone ended up dropping a chem light off the side of the ship accidentally.
What is a chem light?
It's a it's a fancy glow stick.
Like a flare.
A super fancy.
No,
glow
it's just a
stick.
glow stick.
Oh, okay.
And then someone accidentally dropped one. It fell into the water. They saw that and they're like, "Oh crap, we lost someone." I'm actually doing really good at watching my language. But they saw that, so they called a man overboard, and it's like, okay, we have to actually go places. So we're quickly scooping up all our dice, throwing them in our beds to make sure that they don't get lost in the everybody running around.
Yeah.
But outside of that, no, we never had any interruptions.
How long would you say? Like, did you guys do subsequent campaigns? Or was it just one long story that did it get finished before the deployment?
Was it like a story, or was it just sort of a series of episodes, basically?
It was more of a series of episodes because with 4E you had the different tiers.
Yeah.
Paragon, heroic, and was it legendary or something like that?
Something like that.
were you using modules or was it like?
Oh no, the DM, he was coming up with all that stuff on his own.
Oh, sweet.
I
But
gotta say, I'm really impressed because 4E is an excellent system for game masters to start, but it is not easy to improvise.
Yeah, but because they had different tiers, it was okay. Well, you're at these levels. We're doing this thing, and well, you guys are hitting that level. So
Yeah.
we're gonna do a time skip, and now we're on a different quest.
About how many days a week did you play? Because I'm presuming these are all like the same game.
Yeah. Well, we had to work it around playing Magic the Gathering, Bingo, because Bingo's big on the boat.
What
Shit.
format of Magic did you play, if you don't mind me asking?
Uh,
Sorry. Oh.
a lot of us we were playing Legacy because a lot of us had old cards. There were some guys that played Modern. We ended up,
Golfing for rich people is what we call Legacy.
yeah, and then like there were times where we'd play Commander, Chaos Magic, which was extremely hectic when you have 10 people and the rules keep changing. But we're here for Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, let's move on. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
About how many days a week, though, would you say?
Um,
Did your group at least meet?
I think I was playing 3 or 4 days a week
Oh wow.
Wow.
Yeah,
That
I
is-
gotta tell you, that's
because it's
not
like,
easy.
hey, we've got plenty of time. So
Yeah, hats off to your DM,
Yeah, it's
by
not
the
like
way,
you have
because
anything else
that's,
to do.
that's not easy.
I mean,
oh, Jones
If
was
I-
the greatest.
if I could, I would play that much a week.
Yeah.
But still just like, okay, now we got to come up with different content. Okay, well, this happened yesterday, so okay, got to do this, got to do that.
Yeah, he was really good with off the cuff stuff, and then like he pulled inspiration from everything.
Yeah.
Because he had a very wide base of knowledge, so that helped him a lot.
Did anybody, so actually you said so you were out on the longest naval deployment, which,
Well, not longest deployment because there was one that they were out for well over a year.
Longest
we just
not
had-
without going into port.
Yeah.
Basically.
It was like the end of February until I want to say September.
so what happened to, I guess, that game? Do you keep in touch with any of the players and stuff. Like, has there ever been an attempt to, hey guys, let's get on Roll20 or let's do some online thing?
We haven't gone to Roll20 yet, but like every now and then we keep in touch with each other.
Yeah.
But you guys haven't played together since.
No, we
the
haven't
vote.
played together
Oh, that's-
since getting out.
that's
it's
sad.
It's really sad.
You
but-
need to, yeah, I know. You need to get the band back together. There's a Tarrasque somewhere that needs an ass whooping. Okay. Just, one more time.
One more
Everybody
time.
dust
Ass
off the
whooping.
character sheets.
If you
A
don't mind,
Tarrasque whooping, if you will.
Oh no! All questions are on the table.
Don't you do puns on me.
what was the perception of Dungeons and Dragons in the military? Because basically, my perception is that Dungeons and Dragons is for people like me, for nerds. And no offense or anything, but I got bullied a lot in high school about it. So obviously, I'm sure it's different because you got so many people playing. But what was the thought process?
Well, you
about
have so many
Okay.
people who can kill you in a very effective manner who are all like, yeah, let's play D&D.
it? I
But
mean,
Frozen
Marines-
and Pitch Perfect came out, so we watched those all the time. We loved watching anime, talking about anime and nerdy stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like on the outside, oh wow, it's all these gruff infantry dudes, but inside it's like,
biggest.
hey,
weebs
we just
you've
want a
ever met.
nerd. Yeah. We didn't go that far. We didn't have body pillows.
Can you confirm that there was not a single body pillow on
There,
your ship?
there was not a single body pillow in our berthing.
Thank God.
Oh,
One of the Navy guys we believe, but we don't know for sure. We didn't go into their living area because that wasn't our area.
very fair, very fair.
Thank God. I had to say that.
Well, in the Navy, their waifu is all the sea.
Yeah, well.
I also do want to say, guys, I think that the three of us have some work to do because the Marine has done a better job of watching his mouth than we have this episode.
Yeah, I could be better on it. But sorry.
I'm honestly surprised that I haven't sworn on this yet. The
We'll let
keyword
you
is-
get one out.
Keyword
Let's
is
keep it up,
yet.
though. We are over an hour. We're reaching after hours time.
Of course, we're
Yeah. Oh no, this is just
we're doing it live.
This is the extended cut.
Yeah,
Yeah.
extended interview
But-
with Sweet Nacho.
Again, what was the perception of it as far as the personnel? on
Was
it?
I guess to elaborate on what Paul's saying, like was it just like your group? Did they view you guys as outsiders, or was it just like, whatever?
Well, at first it was, what are you doing? And some people would make fun of it. And then eventually they're like, oh, yeah, they're just playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
No sillier than
And
Magic
then
the Gathering.
They're yeah. Our DM, he had to take a moment when he was like, when Magic the Gathering got its time changed, he's like, okay, well, we're going to change this session so that it goes this time so it's not interfering with Magic. And then he stopped and he looked at the table. He's like, I think that's the nerdiest thing I've ever said.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there were guys that they thought it was terrible. They laughed about it. Some of those guys actually ended up playing with us and turned out to love it.
That was my experience with the jocks. I think I mentioned it last time, but in high school, I eventually ended up with an all football player team of Dungeons and Dragons players who were having me run a game for them. And they were mocking me originally. And then they started defending me and playing games with me, which is great, honestly. But
Yeah, what I've noticed is the people that mock it the most end up loving it the most.
So, what is your favorite character that you came up with while you were at sea?
While I was at sea,
And how many did you have? How often did this Jonesy kill you guys?
I never got killed. I accidentally killed our warlock once.
Attaboy.
We were fighting
He deserved it.
We were fighting.
Accidentally.
Well, we were fighting undead. I forgot which one it was, but when you kill it, it explodes.
Oh,
Our warlock was just inside the radius, and his hit points were just low enough that he died.
That's rough, buddy.
So
rest in pieces.
Nelson, if you're watching this, again, I'm sorry. Because your warlock saved my Goliath from slavery, which I can't remember the name that I had for that character. But it was a Goliath barbarian. He became he picked the Paragon Path of Stone Blessed, so add one extra square of reach. Then with my weapon, I had another square of reach. And then, so I've got 15 foot of reach. Took my feat so that if you're within my reach, I get an opportunity attack. Took the other feat. Hey, every time someone goes to where I'd get an opportunity attack, I can make all those attacks. So I'd walk into the center of the room and done.
yeah.
With your huge, stretchy limbs.
Yes.
The Goliath.
Yeah, no, well,
That was a 30-foot kill box.
Yeah. The instant death radius, if you will.
Welcome to the torture chamber.
Well,
But
as far as that all goes, I think we've pretty much asked most of our questions. Thanks for coming on the show again today, bud.
Oh no, thank you for having me. This is a dream come true. I get to pretend I'm on a radio show because this is a podcast.
this is a radio show. You're not pretending. You're here.
We're live.
On the internet.
Okay, I'm talking like driving in the car on the radio.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Well,
But
we'll
we'll
get
get
there.
there. We'll get there.
okay.
Other than Dave, who was the engineer of the first episode, Nacho's actually our first proper guest.
yeah.
So,
We hope to have more in the future, of course.
but with that, Nacho, you did prepare a little something for us. So November the 10th is the birthday. Now, can you tell me exactly what birthday it is for our beloved United States Marine Corps?
So November 10th, 1776, back in Tun Tavern, getting drunk as Marines do, we created the United States Marine Corps. So happy 241st birthday, Marines, Semper Fi.
Alrighty.
And then on November 11th, we have Veterans Day. So make sure to thank your veterans.
It's actually funny. I didn't mean to do it. I just realized that I'm wearing red, white, and blue socks with stars
Attaboy.
all
That's
over.
how you
Atta
do it.
boy.
Fancy
So,
boy.
God
with
bless
that,
America. God
I believe
bless the Marine
I
Corps.
believe that it was described before we started recording today. You have a build for a character that would make Chesty Puller proud.
Oh yes.
Chesty Puller, the crazy motherfucker who wants to put a bayonet on a flamethrower.
Why
I
wouldn't
do
you?
not believe in dropping F-bombs on that show, but you frankly cannot describe a man who wants to put a bayonet on a flamethrower as anything else. Also, one of the greatest Marines that ever lived.
There's a reason
Probably
Chesty
the
Puller had
greatest
5 Navy Crosses.
Exactly. And so,
Which is
talk us
bonkers.
Hey,
through
a
your
heated up
build.
bayonet can sear a wound.
Yeah, it's
Like
like,
a
a
lightsaber?
like a lightsaber.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much a lightsaber.
Yeah,
A
lightsabers.
shitty
But
lightsaber.
the build I made, it's fairly simple. So if you're newer to the game, you want to start delving into cross-classing, but you don't want to do a really technical build like Jake's Spell Sniper was, because that was really technical.
Yeah.
So to start off, you're going to do 4 levels of Barbarian.
Get that anger flowing.
Yeah, you got to get the anger, or I guess I should start with the background. You take the sailor background because you get athletics and perception for your trained skills,
Excellent skills. Perception is king.
which, wow, I really suck at this. You start
Come on,
with
buddy.
you start with the race.
Yeah.
It is a mountain dwarf, so you get your +2 strength, +2 con.
Hold on. A dwarf on a boat? Who are you kidding?
Hey, he's a little rage beast, and if they offer him food and ale, you can get a dwarf on a boat.
Very true. So,
So
It's
now
enough
that
for
I'm
you.
actually at the right part,
we start Mountain Dwarf. We got that +2 con. We got that +2 strength. So we're already going for somebody who likes a lick to the face.
yeah,
You take Sailor because, for those of you who do not know, United States Marine Corps, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but you technically are under the branch
yeah,
of the Navy.
Yeah, we are a department of the Navy. We originated to protect the Navy ships, which is where,
An ancient
as I
tradition.
want to call him, Lil Chesty, because
That might get you in some trouble.
That
Watch out
might.
for that. But
So, yeah. So for this character,
Not Chesty Puller.
if only.
if only, he's on a he's on a ship to protect the crew there.
Okay.
It's a little rage beast, and then while he's there, he starts learning some traditional combat. So he starts taking fighter levels, and you want to get that great weapon fighting because you're using a great axe or a great sword, whichever you prefer.
Next best thing after a gun.
A maul, something like that.
Now, just to clarify, I want to take a step back
Yeah.
here. Is there a specific reason why you took 4 levels of Barbarian versus?
So I guess I could have gone over that, but you take the 4 levels of barbarians so that you get your primal path, which again I forgot about. I'm terrible at this.
it happens. I wouldn't worry too much about
It's
it.
my first time.
Repeat
Yup.
to yourself, it's just a show. I should really just relax.
But yeah, like at 2nd level barbarian, you get your advantage on dexterity saves against effects you can see. You get at 3rd level, you get your primal path, which you want to take the wolf totem so that all of your allies, if they're attacking a creature that you're within melee range of, they get advantage on it, which is great for the team.
A master of, if you will, Semper Fu.
And that works out perfectly
Yeah.
when you were saying that he's put on this boat to protect people. He's buffing the people that he's protecting.
Yes. because he's an inspiration to them. And then you take the 4th level so that you get that stat increase. And then from there, he starts getting proper weapons training. You take great weapon fighters so that when you get a 1 or a 2 on your damage rolls, you get to re-roll those. And you want to go with I want to say it was champion?
A champion fighter, I believe you said,
Yeah.
as opposed to the battle master fighter. But
It's the first one in the player's handbook.
Yes, no,
champion.
it's
With
champion,
champion.
also known as the I'm just here to hit stuff fighter.
Yeah, and then you just start leveling that up as a fighter. So you have your great weapon fighting, you reroll 1s and 2s. Eventually, I think it was early on, you start rolling a crit on a 19 as opposed to a 20.
an
Later-
ancient tradition in D&D.
Later on, that turns into an 18 for a crit. And then when it's all said and done and you hit level 20 because you didn't die,
Or maybe you did die and you came back a couple
One day,
times.
somehow
You got
there.
better.
and then at that point, if you don't take any feats, you will have 20 strength, 20 dexterity, 20 constitution, 10 intelligence, 10 wisdom, and 10 charisma, which I think is pretty overpowered, but
It's well balanced.
Well, you're definitely the strongest and toughest and most dexterous man to have lived.
yeah, so I think it's a great build if you're just starting to get your feet wet into multi-classing. It doesn't take too much effort. You get to start seeing how different classes can help buff each other.
So as far as the trade-off between like what you can do as far as in this case, because you're building this to be like a damage dealer,
Yeah.
the amount of damage that you can deal with on the opposite side of the scale, the mechanical difficulty of the class, you would say is pretty in favor of the damage versus the mechanical difficulty.
Yes.
It's not that difficult. The battle master fighter has a ton of abilities, but
yeah.
the champion has a
Yeah.
couple. so-
Yeah, mechanically it is extremely simple, so it's great for newer players, or if you're just trying to get adjusted into 5e because you're coming from a different edition, then you don't have to worry about all the different mechanics. So you get to start off easy, and you're just dealing a ton of damage.
Just wanted to clarify for the
With
the
a natural
newer
armor-
listeners.
Yeah, with a natural armor of 20 because of unarmored defense, so +5 for your dexterity, +5 for your constitution, 10 base.
Okay.
So you mean like red dragon levels of armor class while completely just no shirt, loincloth,
Just wearing the loincloth.
boots.
You're forgetting the cigarette that's coming out of his lips. And if we're going with a very modern marine, the Monster Energy can or the Rip It can.
Rippets,
Rip it.
which unfortunately I have Monster today instead of a Rippet
Well,
because
it's as
7-Eleven
I've always
didn't
as
hook me up.
I've always understood. It's Monster when you're at home, Rip It when you're out.
yeah,
So, the only thing I think you're missing is a certain item. There is, if you look at the figurines, I do believe there is a certain figurine from the DM's guide. The list of items, I might be wrong here.
bear
but-
in mind I'm a player, I don't DM, so
Very
I
fair.
tend to stay away from the DMG.
Still like
You just look at it and you're just like, not today, Satan.
No,
It's like, nope, not for me.
That's a wise thing, but there's always more to learn.
But
But see, this is also
Yeah,
I did
hang
make
on.
this point that I think it's an awesome perspective to have Nacho on the show as a strict player perspective on things.
I'm not very good at being a player, I'm afraid. I like too much attention.
no, you know what? Actually, what I was going to say there, because I know there is an item, but we can fluff one because there's a small obsidian horse that turns into a nightmare. The only thing this character actually needs to be 100% thematically appropriate as an old-timey marine who hits things with an axe is a small obsidian statue of a dog. So we can summon a hellhound.
Yes.
There we go.
There we go.
No, get
So-
your dog.
So thank you for completing that build.
Yeah. So we are going to post the character sheet for that on our Facebook, and we're going to tweet it out here in a little bit when that's all done. So that's going to be our show for today, guys. Nacho, thank you again so much for coming in, answering our questions. We'd love to have you come sit in again whenever you're free. Whenever you get that
Nacho,
time.
I believe you've been called out on the comments. Michael Scanlon says, "But you're gonna DM our group," with a laughing emoji.
No, he wants to play Star Wars.
That's different, bud.
So that's different.
I recommend the
Good
D20
try,
Star Wars
Michael.
and the Edge of the Empire Star Wars.
So-
really.
Yeah, no, but
Wrap it
thank,
up.
Thanks again for coming out. Like as soon as we had this show, I was the idea for the show. I was going through like the list of people that I would want on the show, and Nacho was definitely towards the top of that list.
Yeah.
Of just I have got to get one of my closest friends that I've played D&D with now for the better part of 6 years, 5-6 years.
A lot.
All right.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So
A lot.
time for the go home, boys. One more time, shout out to our sponsor, Watchtower Comics and Games in Dexter and Milan.
Go ahead and
Stop
grab some
by,
dice from them.
buy dice, buy comics, buy candy, buy whatever you can.
If
Give
you
them a
lose
like on
your
Facebook.
D4 on
Show
a
them some
boat.
love. Because again, they pay the bills to let us shout into the internet about D&D, and we adore them for it. Like us on Facebook, like us on and follow us on Twitter. Share this video. We got a YouTube page and a website that are going to be up and running in the next 2 weeks.
By this evening, probably. It's all made.
We
I just
can
need to
only
finish it.
hope.
In the next 2 weeks.
Another huge shout out to Podcast Detroit for allowing us to use their facilities. They are fantastic. Great
Yes,
group
if
of
you've ever
people.
considered wanting to do your own show, go ahead and look at Podcast Detroit, because getting started here is a lot easier than you think. As long as you got an idea and a passion for it, they will give you a very affordable space to use that's clean and excellent. And
Took us
last
like
but
an
not
hour.
least, for our boppin' intro theme that you may or may not have heard, we'd like to give a special thank you to Rebecca Riot, close personal friend of mine, wrote it for us, and it's nailed it on one try. Like, hey, what do you think of this? After
It
I got the
slaps.
email, and yeah, I was just like, oh, that's a jam. So Clint, if you could play us out with that.
Oh, I loved it.
We are the 3DMs podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and
Please
well,
roll on.
I'm Jake.
Said that was bad.
Yeah, that was early too.
That
Come on
was
now.
Real early.
Come on, Mr.
I
Professional.
thought I was
Nacho.
screwing up.
I'm sorry. That was
Oh,
bad.
and by the way, happy birthday, Marines. I'm
Happy
Jake.
birthday, Nacho, last week.
I'm Paul.
I'm Clint.
And I'm Nacho.
And I'm the disembodied voice.
The ghost of Christmas past. Thanks for listening, guys.
Christmas creep is real.
Roll on.
Roll on.
Feedback.